United Nations envoys are heading to Syria to try to convince President Bashar Assad to stop the crackdown against anti-government protesters. Over the weekend, at least 42 people were killed by Syria's military in just one eastern city. In a surprising move, the governments of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Kuwait are now condemning the violence. Joining us with more on this morning is CBS News foreign affairs analyst Pam Falk. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here, Randall.
What about this condemnation from those three countries, allies normally of Syria,
right,
saying stop?
It's very significant, and they pulled out their ambassadors. And the significance of the Arab nations and allies condemning Syria is that it really sends a message that Assad has gone too far, and that hadn't been the case before. You saw in the UN vote that there was South Africa, Brazil, India, as well as Russia and China, very resistant to trying to move into any kind of more serious UN resolution, and that was because, as a French diplomat told me, the specter, the shadow of Libya hangs over Syria. Many of these allies want to make sure there is no military confrontation, but they're also saying Assad has to stop a very brutal crackdown.
Now, other than the importance of diplomatic language, negative diplomatic language, what, in a practical sense, does it mean for these Arab nations to condemn Syria? I mean, are they pulling back any, are they putting any financial leverage on him?
Well, right now, its first step is to pull out their ambassadors. Turkey has been out front condemning Syria for a long time. What they're doing is first pulling out their ambassadors and then beginning the negotiations. And I think what you will see is those countries, both Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, also joining in some of the UN and U.S. sanctions. There have been very strong European sanctions, and there's a move afoot in the United States to add more, the bipartisan effort to increase the U.S. sanctions.
Based on what you know about Assad, do you think he will bend at all to this kind of pressure?
He hasn't before, but I think when there's some sense of unanimity and condemnation by his Arab allies, he may stop this kind of a crackdown, because it's not what it was when his father did the same thing in Hama that many years ago. It is on the air, it is sent by cell phones, and it is out in the public view. I mean, they're just brutally torturing preteens and sending them back into the community. They're trying to send a message, and it's only making the opposition more strong.
So let's switch gears now to Somalia.
Yes.
Growing humanitarian crisis there.
Right.
Scott Pelley, correspondent Scott Pelley, did our broadcast from there. Can you describe the UN's efforts to get more aid to the people who are dying by the second?
It's unbelievable, really, Randall. And this is what the UN does best. There are aid agencies, UNICEF, UNHCR, which is the refugee agency. All of them are trying to get the food, and a World Food Program, trying to get the food in. There have been 29,000 children killed in the last 3 months. It is unbelievable, and 12 million people under threat of famine in the Horn of Africa. Now, they have the largest refugee camp right now that's spun into 3. What you see is 2 things. One is the worst drought that the region has had, and a much more complicating factor, Al-Shabaab, which is a Islamic radical group aligned with Al-Qaeda, blocking some of the aid. Now, in the recent days, they've pulled out of Mogadishu, and the UN Special Envoy, Agustin Mahiga, who will brief the Council on Wednesday, believes that's a good thing, but it also can be more threatening as well.
Now, if you could respond briefly, the U.S. pledged $105 million in aid. Should we expect a response much like we saw in '93?
No, one would hope. This is all going through not only the UN aid agencies, but it's also being accompanied by the African Union peacekeeping forces and the military forces that are authorized by the UN. So they're trying to get this aid in. It seems like it may be less blocked with Al-Shabaab, the terrorist group, leaving, but it's an uphill battle. '93
was bad enough, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
CBS News foreign affairs analyst Pam Falk, thank you very much for your insight.
My pleasure, Randall. Good to be here.